Hey everyone, and welcome to Tactical Inc., your portal to the captivating realm of all things Lorcana. I'm Bradley.
And I'm Alex. Ursula's return is here. Today, we'll dive into the set, discussing its fresh mechanics, highlighting impactful cards, and identifying the best ones in the collection, in our opinion.
So let's dive into dissecting the set. Beginning with the section, New and Improved. Here we'll explore the fresh mechanics, strategies, keywords, and other elements that are either newly introduced or have been enhanced with the release of Ursula's return.
So one new mechanic that we see is the Sing Together mechanic. This is a really cool concept which allows you to exert multiple of your characters to sing a more powerful song. The question is, will it be worth the loss of tempo by exerting all those characters? And that's what we'll have to see. Some of the best examples may be Second Star to the Right, which allows you to draw 5 cards. Dig a Little Deeper, which allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and draw 2 of them. Under the Sea, which removes all opposing characters with 2 strength or less, which could be really strong, and it doesn't banish them, which can get around a lot of banish effects. Instead, it puts them at the bottom of their library. Or even something a little bit more simple and cheaper like a Pirate's Life, which only costs 6 ink, but still multiple of your characters could help to sing it for a quick change in lore where you gain 2 lore and your opponent loses 2. Some of these songs are really interesting, and it will be a lot of fun to see how powerful they truly will be. Along with this, we also got some powerful new singers such as Ariel Singing Mermaid and Cinderella Melody Weaver. Ariel is a 4 ink character who has Singer 7, and Cinderella respectively is a 5 ink character that has Singer 9. So both of these have the potential to sing some of these big songs all on their own or with very little help. You've also got the new location Atlantica, which gives all of your characters who are at that location Singer +2. Some of these are going to be great ways to make these songs easier to bring out.
Next, we see a new way to shift out Floodborn characters. Before the release of this set, you could only shift out characters by paying the shift ink cost. Now with Ursula's return, each color has a card that allows you to shift out by discarding either a specific amount of cards or a type of card. Amber has Ursula, Eric's bride. Amethyst has Flotsam and Jetsam, entangling eels. Emerald has Diablo, devoted herald. Ruby has Li Shang, valorous general. Sapphire has Olaf, carrot enthusiast. And Steel has Aladdin, brave rescuer. These options allow you to get 3 ink or 4 ink characters out, possibly on turn 1. The downside is it takes a lot of resources, so we'll see how much play these cards will really have. But one thing is for sure, discard decks will love to see their opponent getting rid of cards.
Next up, we've got the new support for locations. Now, we got a lot of new locations in this set, however, most of them don't seem to be extremely powerful. None of them have a high passive lore value like some cards from the past set, such as the Queen's Castle and McDuck Manor. A lot of these new locations require some setup to get their effects going, and it's going to be interesting to see if these effects can be used very competitively. Atlantica is a noteworthy one, as it could give Ursula, Deceiver of All, the ability to sing 5-cost songs like A Whole New World, which could just be amazing. Then we also got 2 Triton characters that work with your locations. Triton Young Prince gives you some good ink ramp whenever your locations get banished. And then you have Triton Champion of Atlantica, who gives every opposing character -1 strength for each location you have in play. That's basically the same as saying that all your characters and locations have resist +1, because all of a sudden each one of your opponent's characters don't have the same strength that they did. This can keep your locations in play a lot longer, and basically once Triton is on the board, it could be an easy win. I don't know if he's very powerful yet, but in the future he definitely could be.
Next up, we have a team card. And this is a card we just mentioned in the new shift section. And it's Flotsam and Jetsam, entangling eels. This character may not be the most interesting unless you're building a Voltron style deck. However, it could mean a lot for the future. We could see more of these cards, say Beast and Belle, or Bagheera and Baloo, and more. And the possibilities are definitely intriguing, especially when you think about cards like the Lamp, that gains effects if you control either Jafar or Genie. But if you could have a team card, you could get both of them rather than have two separate characters on the field.
Moving on, let's look at how items have been improved. For one thing, Aerial Treasure Collector is an amazing new win condition with your items. It only takes having one more item in play than your opponent's to give her an additional +2 lore, and on top of that she has ward, which makes it very hard to remove her before it's too late. One really good item for steel is Fortisphere, which is basically a copy of Popsicle for steel. You hardly ever are going to use its bodyguard ability, which is pretty decent. Instead, you'll be using it as a simple draw engine with Hiram Flaversham. Having both Fortisphere and Popsicle in one deck has really made Sapphire Steel a very consistent and a dangerous ink combination. Another item that looks fairly unassuming is Ice Block, but you may not want to overlook it. In a Ruby Sapphire item deck, it could sneak up to remove your characters in conjunction with Madame Medusa, Sisu Daring Visitor, or Sisu Responsible Sister. You may not have thought that these characters could have been banished, but with Ice Block it makes it possible. Finally, we have to mention Hidden Ink Caster, which allows you to ink your uninkable cards. This is something that, other than with Fishbone Quill, has never been possible, and now in theory you could build a deck with many more uninkables than you ever would have before.
We also see cards that we're calling anti-song or song hate or whatever you want. Ursula the Sea Witch King is an amethyst card that won't allow opponents' characters to sing songs for free. And Signed Contract is an emerald item that lets you draw each time your opponent plays a song. It'll be interesting to see if these cards see much play.
So let's look at healing and self-infliction in Ursula's return. One really solid healing card is Julieta Madrigal. She's basically a cheaper Rapunzel gifted with healing, costing only 3 ink, however she can only draw you up to 1 card. The thing that is so good about Julieta is that she works even better on curve with a card like Mother Gothel, where Mother Gothel will come out on turn 2, Julieta immediately comes out on the next turn, instead of having to wait for Rapunzel for an additional turn. We also got some more characters who come into play damaged, such as Mulan Wounded Soldier and Beast Wounded. These cards can give Amber Ruby decks more card draw opportunities in conjunction with Julieta and Rapunzel. It could also open up some new possibilities for moving damage counters around in a deck like Ruby Amethyst.
Next, we have support. Sapphire and Amber introduced 8 new cards with the support mechanic. Out of them, Prince Philip, Gallant Defender, is probably the most interesting to me, since he gives characters resist +1 when they are chosen for support. Still, the support mechanic seems to be a little lacking, and cards like Alice Growing Girl are just begging for something to push it over the top.
Another game mechanic that we're seeing come into play more often now is strength reduction. A few card examples in this newest set that cause strength reduction are Ice Block, giving a chosen character -1 strength, Lost in the Woods, giving all opposing characters -2 strength until the next turn, Triton Champion of Atlantica, who gives -1 strength for every location that you have, and finally the item Record Player, which gives an opposing character -2 strength for every time that you play a song. A lot of these are things that you might pass up at first, thinking that they're too slow and not very useful, and that may be the case a lot of the time. However, they could be used in conjunction with some new cards that we have, such as Under the Sea, Sisu Daring Visitor, and Sisu Responsible Sister. All of these require your opponent's characters to have a certain amount of strength or less to be able to be banished. And that's as well as, of course, Madame Medusa from the last set, who can banish a character with 3 strength or less. So getting some of these strength reductions could banish characters that your opponent wasn't expecting.
Up next, we are seeing a lot of more cards dealing damage and moving damage being released. Mulan Elite Archer is one of the notable damaging cards in Ruby, and Aerial Sonic Warrior being a steel character that can shift out early and begin dealing damage to characters. Wildbell Accomplished Mystic is a notable character that moves around damage from character to character. She could be useful with all these characters released this set that we spoke about that damages themselves, along with a card from Into the Inklands, Maleficent, Mistress of All Evil.
Speaking of damage, there may be more possibilities for a damage archetype deck to really work now. Something that uses cards like Beast Relentless as one of its ultimate win conditions. Well, we do see Prince Philip, Slayer of Enemies, as an amazing 9 ink drop that could take out all of your opponent's characters that have damage on them, and that goes great in this deck. You also have cards like Vision Slab that give you additional lore for when your opponents have damaged characters. So maybe a damage focused deck really could end up working sooner rather than later.
Next, we see some Recursion with Amber's location, the Underworld, bringing characters back from your discard to your hand. We are also seeing Amethyst with Bruno Magical out of the shadows, giving a character the effect that when it's banished in a challenge, it returns to your hand this turn. Ursula's Lair is a location that also gives characters the same effect that move there. But in my opinion, Hades Lord of the Underworld and Perdita Devoted Mother are both better than the Underworld location, since it costs 2 to move there. And Dr. Facilier Agent Provocator is better than Bruno in my opinion, since Dr. Facilier works for all your other characters and Bruno only works for 1.
Another mechanic that's brand new coming into Ursula's Return is one that I'm pretty excited about, and that is card searching, also known in other games like Magic the Gathering as a tutor. This is a card that can look through your deck and find something that you want to put it into your hand. And the one that we got in Ursula's Return is pretty underwhelming. It's Alma Madrigal. She allows you to look through your deck and find a Madrigal character and put it on top of your deck. Now, all the Madrigals are not really very good, other than maybe Bruno Undetected Uncle. However, I've always liked the idea of being able to build a deck that is so consistent because you can search for exactly what you want, and this concept coming into Lorcana is really neat. It could be too powerful if it's done the wrong way, but I don't think they'll do that. So I'm really curious to see if we get some more cards that go in this direction.
And speaking of Bruno Undetected Uncle, we also see more cards that rely on top deck manipulation. With Bruno, you exert to name a card. Then you reveal the top card of your deck. And if you named the card that was revealed, you gain 3 lore and add it to your hand. So you want to combine this with Ursula's Cauldron, Sorcerer's Hat, and the Bosses on a Roll. However, activated character abilities have just not been very effective right now, as you have to wait a turn to pull off their effect.
Next we'll look at discard and what changes have come to discard themes in this set. We have a few notable cards here, one of the best being the song We Don't Talk About Bruno, which says to return chosen character to their player's hand and that player discards a card at random. If that player didn't have any cards in their hand, then this is basically like banishing a character all on its own, which is pretty amazing. But even just making them discard one of their cards at random can be great because it could cause them to discard their most important piece that they really didn't want to. We also see in Emerald Jasmine Desert Warrior and a new action Ursula's Trickery. Notably, Amber is also getting some improvements in discard which it really needed, such as Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy, Sign the Scroll, and the Floodborn Ursula Eric's Bride.
Next up, we see more removal added, with cards mentioned already like Under the Sea that can just wipe out aggro decks, and Prince Philip, Vanquisher of Foes, removing characters with damage counters. We also see cards in Ruby like Sisu Daring Visitor and Sisu Responsible Sister, also removing aggro characters on the field. Ruby also has Be King Undisputed, a 4-cost Ruby song that has the effect of Lady Tremaine, each opponent choosing a character they control and banishing it, which I love. Amber has Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion that can remove high strength characters such as Maleficent Dragon and Maui Hero to All. Still gets probably 2 of my favorite removals, Aladdin Brave Rescuer and the item board wipe I Find 'em and I Flatten 'em. Every set is seeing more and more removal, which I think is good for decks, becoming more balanced and controlling the game.
Next, let's look at how aggro and lore rush have improved in Ursula's Return. One good example is the new Emerald Pegasus. There's the 1-ink Pegasus, gift for Hercules, as well as his Floodborn counterpart, Pegasus Cloud Racer. The 1-ink Pegasus is like a better Pascal Rapunzel's companion, being a simple 1-drop with evasive, whereas Pegasus Cloud Racer comes into play and allows all the characters that you have to gain evasive until the start of your next turn, where they can potentially quest and not be banished to get you that much closer to the end of the game. We also have some other strong low-to-the-ground characters, such as Anna Braving the Storm, who is a 2-ink 1/4 who can have 2 lore if you have another hero character in play. You also have Yin Sid, who is great with the broom decks, having 3 lore himself as long as you have 2 or more brooms in play. Or even Flynn Rider Frenemy, who gains 3 lore at the start of your turn as long as you have higher strength on one of your characters than all of your opponents. Overall, we didn't get a lot of new, cheap, high lore characters, but it's good to see a few that will add to the pile.
With Into the Inklands, we saw Sapphire really increase the amount of cards that ramp or reward you for ramping. This set, Sapphire focused more on items. However, there are still a few Sapphire cards introduced, such as Iduna and Great Stone Dragon. We also see characters' ink costs being lowered by Gaston, Despicable Dealer, a card that I believe could see play if you're okay switching out some of your uninkables. But the most shocking of the ramp cards actually comes in Emerald, in my opinion, with Hey Hey Clumsy Rooster. That gives you an extra ink if your opponent has more ink than you. It's one of those off-color cards that could be very useful if you're not playing in Sapphire.
Then to take a quick look at evasive and what this keyword has gained in Ursula's Return. Again, we have Pegasus Gift for Hercules and Pegasus Cloud Racer. There's also some others to mention, such as Diablo Devoted Herald, who is probably one of the most powerful characters in the set. And then you have Sisu Daring Visitor, who comes out and banishes a character most likely, and then she herself can stick around because she is evasive. You also have Bruno Madrigal Undetected Uncle, who can gain you a lot of lore and keeps himself alive with his evasive. And the same could be said for Isabella Madrigal, having up to 4 lore in a turn and being evasive herself.
We are also seeing more and more ways to gain lore outside of questing. And Ruby probably has 2 of the best cards, with Flynn Rider Frenemy, who gains you 3 lore if you control the character with the highest strength, and with Goofy Super Goofy, who has Rush and can immediately challenge and give you 2 lore. We talked about Amethyst with Bruno Madrigal, giving 3 lore if you name the right card on the top of your deck as well. Sapphire added Triton that lets you banish one of your items to gain 3 lore, but it's uninkable and banishes your items that you need for your next turn to play Hiram Flaversham. And then there's a ton of characters that either gain additional lore, like Ariel Treasure Collector and Yin Sid Powerful Sorcerer, or your other characters give your other characters additional lore like Donald Duck Buccaneer and Cinderella Melody Weaver, or even gain lore as you play heroes with Phil, No Nonsense Instructor.
Taking a look at the bounce mechanic, we only got a couple of things added that can bounce things back to your own hand. One is the Muses Proclaimers of Heroes, which is pretty powerful on its own to knock your opponent's cards back into their hand. However, you could use this on one of your own characters with 2 strength or less to bounce them back into your hand and keep them safe and play them again. We also have the new song in Amethyst, Poor Unfortunate Souls, which allows you to return a character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. This is most likely a little bit better version of Befuddle because it can be sung for free, and it could also return one of your locations to your hand to be played again. One of those locations that just doesn't have a high willpower and may have been challenged once and is just about to be wiped out. Now you can put that back into play with all of its willpower back intact.
Now we get into the new tribal and the tribals that really were improved on. So we have the characteristic Madrigal. This set introduces us to the lovely family from the movie Encanto. And you'll see these characters in Amber and Amethyst. And they will want to work together with Mirabelle, Madrigal, Gift of the Family, giving all the other Madrigals plus one lore. Some Madrigals that stand out that you may see some play are Bruno, Undetected Uncle, Julieta, Excellent Cook, and Isabella, Golden Child.
Yeah, and one tribal theme that I know people have been waiting to become good may finally be there in Ursula's return, and that is the broom deck. And we got 4 new brooms in this set. Magic Broom Illuminary Keeper, Magic Broom Aerial Cleaner, Lively Sweeper, and Brigade Commander. The one that stands out the most is the 1 ink Magic Broom Illuminary Keeper, as this can really get a lot of brooms onto the field fast. And you're going to want to do that with another card, Yin Sid, who was just introduced. Because whenever you play him, if you have a Magic Broom in play, you can draw a card, and if you have 2 Magic Brooms in play, he now gets an additional +2 lore. Finally, your Mickey Mouse Wayward Sorcerers are going to be more useful as you're playing broom after broom onto the field in this archetype. Speaking of Mickey Mouse, we also now have Mickey Mouse Playful Sorcerer, who is a Floodborn 5 ink character with Shift 3 that says when you play this character, you can deal damage to chosen character equal to the number of broom characters that you have in play, giving even more advantage for having the board flooded with brooms. This is going to be a really fun deck to play with and figure out how it could actually work competitively, but I see the dream really coming to life.
Another tribal theme that we're seeing return is one of my favorites from Chapter 1. It's the Musketeers. We see 5 of them in Amber, with Donald Duck Musketeer Soldier, Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy, Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion, Mickey Mouse Musketeer Captain, and Goofy Musketeer Swordsman. And then we got 2 more Musketeers not in Steel or Amber, with Pete Born to Cheat and Pete Rotten Guy. We may see some of these Musketeers like Donald Duck Musketeer Soldier, Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy popping up in some decks. However, I don't think we'll see this deck archetype popping off quite yet in the meta.
And the last tribal theme that we see being expanded in this set is Heroes. Some examples of ways that heroes have been boosted are through Anna Truehearted, who gives all of your other hero characters +1 lore after she quests for the rest of that turn. And then you have Anna Braving the Storm, who gets an additional lore as long as you have a hero in play. And probably the most powerful of them is Phil No Nonsense Instructor, who has the ability Shameless Promoter that says whenever you play a hero character, gain 1 lore. That basically, once he is in play, turns all of your hero characters into a Merlin goat of their own. I've seen this start to pop off when I've played against it, and it can be pretty scary, seeing as there are in total in all of Lorcana 262 hero characters, and many of them are very competitively viable. I could definitely see Phil and both of these Anna characters being used to create a solid hero deck. And that's it for our new and improved themes, mechanics, and card types of the set. Now we'll get into cards that we think will have the most impact. And our minds will probably change several times throughout the next few months on what the most impactful will be, so don't judge too harshly right here.
And even looking back at our other set reviews and top 10 videos, our minds have changed a lot on most of these cards now. These are just our opinions of what we think will be the most impactful right now. So with that out of the way, Alex, kick us off with the most impactful card for Amber this set.
Yeah, Amber wasn't the most exciting color to me this set, but one that I think is a very solid card is Julieta Madrigal, Excellent Cook. She is a 3 ink character who is inkable and has 1 strength, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. And her ability Signature Recipe, which says when you play this character you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If you removed damage this way, you may draw a card. Coming out a turn earlier than Rapunzel gifted with healing, she can get things started where Rapunzel would have had to wait, and I think that she will just be very solid and definitely be seeing some competitive play.
Hey, I would love to see this card in bodyguard decks that are taking damage, protecting your characters, and that's something you'll be seeing in our starter deck upgrade video that we'll be releasing in a few weeks. My choice for Amber was Donald Duck, Musketeer Soldier. Donald is a 3-cost inkable character that has 2 strength and 3 willpower with 1 lore. He is a Dreamborn, hero, and musketeer. He has bodyguard and the effect called Wait For Me. It says when you play this character, chosen character gets +1 lore. And I love this Donald so much. He's similar to your other 3-cost bodyguards like Hercules True Hero. However, he sacrifices 1 strength to give him this effect of adding 1 lore to a character you control. So if you're protecting your aggro characters such as Lilo making a wish, you can make her have 3 lore for a turn. Another bonus to this card is something that doesn't really affect the gameplay, but I love the art and how amazing it is. It's one of my favorite arts of this whole set. And I love that we're getting some good musketeers this set, like Donald and Daisy Duck Musketeer Spy. It was my first deck I ever built back in Chapter 1, and I'm hoping that we keep getting more and more musketeers as the game goes on.
Looking at Amethyst, the card that I think will be most impactful is Ursula Sea Witch Queen. She is a 7 ink character who is inkable. She has 4 strength, 7 willpower, and 3 lore. She has shift 5 and has 2 effects. The first, Now I Am the Ruler, says whenever this character quests, exert chosen character. The second is You'll Listen to Me, which says other characters can't exert to sing songs. First of all, her stats alone make her stand out. Having 4 strength gets around a lot of removal in the game, such as Brawl, the Muses, Kit Cloud Kicker, and of course Madame Medusa the Boss. Having 7 willpower gets around Maui Hero to All, and then along came Zeus and many others. The 3 lore will be a huge threat, and keeping opposing characters from singing big songs like A Whole New World could stop a lot of decks right in their tracks.
And the Amethyst card I chose was a card we talked about back in the balance section. It's Poor Unfortunate Souls. This is a card that costs 2 ink and is inkable and is an action and a song. And since it's a song, a character with a cost of 2 or more can exert to sing this song for free. It says, return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. So, as said before, this is a befuddle that costs 1 more, but it also can return a location. However, what makes it really good is the fact that it's a song and you can sing it for free. This can help get rid of a lot of your opponent's lower cost threats like Madam M Snake, bodyguards like Simba Protective Cub, items like Lantern and Sleepy Flute, and locations like Pride Lands and the Jolly Roger. You can combine it with your Ursula Deceiver of All and really remove your opponent's board state.
Moving on to Emerald, and the card that I see being impactful is a new Sing Together song, Under the Sea. This is an 8 ink song which is uninkable, and it has Sing Together 8, which says any number of your characters with a total cost of 8 or more may exert to sing this song for free, and it says put all opposing characters with 2 strength or less on the bottom of their player's deck in any order. I really like this song, and I think it could be a little bit underrated as to how much it could shift the tide in the game, being a one-sided Be Prepared. People may think it's too slow. At the point in the game where you would be playing this, there won't be many characters that really matter with 2 strength or less. However, I think if you use this with something like Ariel Spectacular Singer to get it out fast, you could be wiping out their board early on when they didn't expect it.
Yeah, and this is a card that can really change the momentum of the game. You can combine it with Queen Commanding Presence, Keto Protector of Atlantis, or Lost in the Woods to get even more powerful characters to be swept up from the board. It's best against aggro decks, but even mid-range to late game can be put in a bind by the power of this card. And best of all, it's a song and can be sang for free. And my Emerald card is the Muses, Proclaimers of Heroes. The Muses is a 4 ink cost that is inkable and has 2 strength, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. It's a Storyborn and ally with Ward. Its effect is the Gospel Truth. It says, whenever you play a song, you may return a chosen character with 2 strength or less to their player's hands. The Muses is a repeatable Kit Cloud Kicker. Use this with Ursula Deceiver of All and constantly be removing characters from your opponent's board. Even mix in cards we just mentioned to lower your opponent's strength and return your opponent's cards to their hand. Songs just keep getting more and more powerful, and the Muses is just adding to the strength of using those songs.
This is just one more reason why characters with 2 strength or less are going to have a lot more trouble moving forward. The Muses are very powerful, and the fact that they have ward is going to make it almost impossible to remove. You're not going to be questing with them much, you're just going to be keeping them ready to at your board to use their ability. And I really like the idea of using a song like Sudden Chill alongside the Muses. If you used this while your opponent had no cards in their hand, you could automatically force them to return one of their characters to hand and then discard it with Sudden Chill's effect. Next up for our impactful cards is Ruby, and the card that I see being very impactful in Ruby is Lumiere Fiery Friend. Lumiere is a 2 ink character who is inkable. He has 2 strength, 2 willpower, and 1 lore, which are pretty vanilla stats. However, he has the ability Fervent Address, which says your other characters get +1 strength. And that ability is what really matters. Because in a game that's now starting to punish you for having low strength, Lumiere comes back to raise your character's strength to a better level, avoiding banishments from things like Madame Medusa the boss. It also can act like Merlin Crab, coming out unexpectedly to give your characters a higher strength to banish another card that your opponent wouldn't have expected.
And there's a bunch of rush characters such as Maui Hero to All, Stitch Little Rocket, and the card I chose for Ruby, Goofy Super Goof, that all love Lumiere. And Goofy is one of my favorite cards in this whole set. I chose him for the most impactful Ruby card. He is a 4-cost inkable character with 2 strength, 4 willpower, and 1 lore. He has Rush and the effect Super Peanut Powers. It says, whenever this character challenges another character, gain 2 lore. So he is what you would get if you combine Madame M. Fox and the Goat together. You're getting a character with Rush, and you're gaining lore. Use him with LeFou, Instigator, or Ratigan, Very Large Mouse, to ready him and challenge again. Use him with characters like Lumiere, or Maui's Fishhook to add more strength to knock more characters out. There are just so many options for him, and it's surprising how much lore you can get from this character.
Then in Sapphire, the card that I see being most impactful for sure is Ariel Treasure Collector. Ariel is a 6 ink character who is uninkable. She has 3 strength, 4 willpower, and 3 lore. She has ward, and the ability The Girl Who Has Everything, which says while you have more items in play than each opponent, this character gets +2 lore. That gives her 5 lore total for a very simple price of only having 1 more item in play than every opponent. Having ward keeps her safe, unlike Belle Strange But Special and Tamatoa, who may get banished before you have the chance to use them. However, she will probably stick on the board long enough to be able to get all that lore out on her own, as well as with Lucky Dime. Overall, she's just another really amazing win condition for Sapphire item decks.
And yeah, I think the only thing you really have to watch out for is mirror decks who might be playing more items than you, or steel decks that can destroy your items easily with cards like I Find 'em, I Flatten 'em that banishes all items. Either way though, the amount of lore she can gain is insane, even without her effect activating. 3 lore is still really good, especially with ward. I wish there was a way to activate abilities the same turn you play them, because I would run Ariel with the Queen disguised Peddler. Maybe one day. And my pick for Sapphire also has to do with items, and it's Scuttle, Expert on Humans. Scuttle is a 2 ink character that is inkable with 1 strength and 3 willpower and 1 lore. He has the effect, Let Me See. It says, when you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So Scuttle is just a really good card to help you find your items that you need. And it's very useful for Lucky Dime decks and Popsicle decks. And some bounce mechanics like Madame M, Snake, or Fox, put them back in your hand and play them again. And you can even add more and more items over and over again.
Yeah, this is just making item decks so much more consistent with having this amount of card draw and being able to find everything that you could possibly need early on in the game. Scuttle is most likely going to be what you see on turn 2 in every item deck from now on. And speaking of items, looking at my most impactful card for Steel, I picked Fortisphere, which is a 1 ink item that is inkable. It has 2 effects. The first is Resourceful, which says when you play this item, you may draw a card. The second, Extract of Steel, says pay 1 ink and banish this item. Chosen character of yours gains bodyguard until the start of your next turn. So I talked about this card a little bit already in the item section, and it really is amazing to be able to have another Popsicle option available in Steel. Having this along with Popsicle can give you so much draw opportunity, and its bodyguard effect is really interesting as well. You'll a lot of the time be using this in conjunction with Hiram Flavershem, and if you get in a bind, he does have 6 willpower and could be a great bodyguard option.
And my choice for Steel may surprise people, but it's Steel's version of Merlin Crab, Mickey Mouse Standard Bearer. Mickey Mouse is a Steel character that costs 2 ink and is inkable. He has 1 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. He has the effect Stand Strong. When you play this character, chosen character gains Challenger +2 this turn. So, like I said, it's a version of Merlin Crab. Is it as good? No. But it can be very helpful, especially removing early locations or high willpower character threats. It works great in many aggro decks to help clear the board early on in the game. It can help wipe out a lot of these 1/3 characters as well, such as Minnie Mouse Always Classy, or even one of the cards we talked about earlier, Scuttle.
And one of the best things about this character to me is that he is the shift option of choice for Mickey Mouse Playful Sorcerer in any broom deck. You'll probably want to include him. And now for our last section, we're going to look at what the best cards of the set are by card type. We'll look at each card type, which are characters, actions, items, and locations, and we'll tell you what the best card of each type is for this set. So Bradley, what do you think would be the best character and why?
I chose Goofy Super Goof for the reasons that we mentioned earlier. Gaining lore the first turn something enters the battlefield, and using shenanigans that help you do it over and over again with things like LeFou Instigator, or even using challenging effects like Shere Khan to gain you even more lore. It's just such an effective card and why it's my favorite character of this set.
Yeah, and another one that I would consider to be the best character of the set is one that we've already talked about as well, and that's Ariel Treasure Collector. She comes out faster than Tamatoa, and she can get a high lore value easier than he can, making your win condition in any item deck that much easier. Having Ward keeps her on the board, and overall I think she's just a super strong character.
So moving on to actions, Alex, what do you think the best action is?
So the best action in this set to me is the Steel Song, I Find My Platinum, which says to banish all items. And with all the new amazing items and item support that we got recently, it was bound to happen that we would have a card like this to be a counter to all these items. And I think it's going to be something that you see a lot.
And the action I chose was Be King Undisputed. Being able to play a card potentially for free that is the effect of Lady Tremaine, which is a card that's been a part of the meta for a while now, that is excellent. I would like to see some more Amber Ruby song decks with this card in it.
And then what would you say the best item is in Ursula's Return?
I chose Hidden Inkcaster, something that I'm not really seeing played around too much, but it drawing you a card, which in Emerald is a plus, and more importantly, its effect to allow you to play uninkable cards from your hand is what makes it good. And if you play Emerald, it seems like there are so many Emerald cards that are uninkable that I'm trying to put in my deck, but I want to keep the countdown of uninkable cards, and this card can help you a lot.
And the item that I think is the best in the set, as no surprise, is Fortisphere, which we've already talked about. This is just another Popsicle to give you a lot more card draw, card cycling, to find what you need, and to make your item decks really shine.
And finally, Alex, tell us your thoughts on the best location of this set.
So I'm not super excited about a lot of the locations, but one that I see having a decent amount of potential is Thebes the Big Olive. This location has a pretty cheap cost, and it has a cheap move cost of only 1. This location has a pretty cheap cost, being only 2 ink, and it has a cheap move cost as well, costing only 1 to move your characters here. It has no passive lore value, so your opponents probably won't be trying to take it out, and its willpower is 7, making it pretty high. And every character who is at this location gains the ability of Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, where when they banish another character in a challenge, you gain 2 lore. We've seen this to be a very powerful effect with him, and being able to set this up relatively easily for any other characters could be very strong and is a definite possibility in competitive decks.
I struggled a little with the locations as well, but I chose Thebes also. Just because we saw how much Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood's first effect of gaining 2 lore and how much impact that had on the game. And this location gives that ability to a character here. That's why it's number 1 on my list of locations. It can be a little bit of a setup, but if you get it going, I could see it being pretty impactful.
Looking at this set as a whole and giving it a grade scale of A+ being the best and F being the worst, Bradley, what grade would you give to this set?
So, I thought about this for a while, and I'm actually going to give this set a B-. I just don't feel like it added too much, and some of the cards are just a little lackluster in my opinion. However, the cards that are good, they are becoming staples in many decks. It'll be interesting to see how much of the meta changes with this set releasing.
Yeah, it's a fine line that the game developers, I'm sure, have to walk in adding very powerful cards to the game, but also not making things too overpowered. And with that in mind, I think I would give this set a C, just right around average, because I don't see a lot of characters that are new that are super exciting to me, or many new mechanics that are very interesting. However, one thing that does bump it up a little bit to me is the fact that we have the new Illumineer's Quest, that I think is a really cool concept where you can play just for fun playing together. And that does help it in my mind.
Well, that's all for today. What do you think about this set? And what are the cards you think will be most impactful from this set? Tell us in the comments below.
Be sure to follow us on social media to keep up to date on the latest Tactical Ink news. And also be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you can tune in every Friday for a new episode of Tactical Ink.
See you next week.